My name is Fletcher. I'm the CEO of Discovered. It's a performance hiring platform. Last year, I had the great honor to carry on the IntegrityFirst legacy. And so we brought that tool into our family of products. We acquired that, and we've been just very, very impressed with the product and the tool and what it can do for folks. And I actually been a previous user of the product in a past life when I was running multiple business units for a company called AutoClar. So I got to be a firsthand experience using it in day-to-day life and what it can do for an organization. But now we get to share this with the world. So pretty exciting for me. And I've got Gary Peterson here. He is the founder of The Edge, and he has been the top advocate of the IntegrityFirst tool and used this in his risk management practices for Gary, you can take over from here, but
many years,
a really long time.
A long time, a very long time. So,
yeah.
Anyways, do you want me to go ahead and get started?
Sure. Yeah, go ahead and share a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. I'll take it from here, and feel free, Fletcher, to chime in as I get going. I have a consulting practice, and I'll show you a little slide at the end of the presentation of what I do. But basically, I look for money in large work comp programs, and one of the tools I use is integrity testing, which we're going to talk about. And so I'm both the person who sells and promotes this product, but also somebody I use this in my daily life with my clients. So I see both sides of this on this product. So the product we're talking about is IntegrityFirst, and it's integrity testing, which is an online pre-assessment tool, screens out high-risk behaviors or applicants with high-risk behaviors. This presentation, a little different than we do sometimes, is really designed for companies that provide work comp services. So insurance brokers and agents, insurance companies, program or captive managers, and industry vendors. So this is geared more towards, how to use this in your business to a lot of times, improve the results for your client and other things. A large producer friend of mine I was talking to a couple months ago, and he made a comment about today's marketplace as an insurance producer or broker. He goes, since COVID, it's harder to get prospects to meet, begin to look at new ideas, or consider brokerage relationships or new relationships, unless there is significant pain. So today, what I'm going to do is going to demonstrate how integrity testing can improve your client's results. It can be used to create new business opportunities and improve client retention and improve effectiveness and efficiency of your existing risk management resources. A study came out by Travelers this year, which was very interesting. They call it their impact study based on the 2022 losses. And they came out and said that 34% of all workplace injuries and costs are from our new hires, people that have been employed less than 1 year. And then by industry, it can be over 50% or close to 50% in many industries. I work with another insurance company that 40% of their claims and 40% of the costs come from what we call new hires. But the most interesting point of this study, what I highlight there in yellow is, regardless of industry experience. So these people that are having injuries, it's not like I'm brand new, I don't know what I'm doing. It's not like I'm not conditioned to do the work. I'm a new employee. There's something else driving it. And I would suggest this is a tool that focuses on people that maybe are from gaming the system or seem to get hurt for other reasons and whatnot.
And because I'm a little bit of a newbie on this. So what you're saying is, if I am hiring cooks or if I'm hiring drivers or I'm hiring folks for my warehouse jobs, and these people have previous experience in a similar environment. So they've been working in a logistics warehouse and pick pack environment, or a construction environment, or a restaurant environment, and they leave that job where they've gained that experience and they go work for another similar construction, logistics, warehouse company. Those people are getting injured on the job at the same frequency as people who have never done that job before.
Right. And I guess this boils down to, because, and I grew up out of safety. That's where I first started in this industry. And we would just assume these new people, well, they're not trained or they're not conditioned.
No.
That's not what this is saying. The people that are trained and people that are in condition are having these injuries. So it goes counter to what the traditional safety thought process is.
Yeah, it really bucks the myth that, people who have experience are going to be, better or more reliable or less prone to injuries or issues on the job, right? It just says that, it doesn't really matter. It's just really people new to your organization are risky.
Correct. This is a slide we're just talking about. I have a real large client. I kind of put it together after working with this client. They're in the healthcare field, and we do all the stuff you think on the left there. And really, we're doing a great job of it. And then during the heart of COVID, many of these things kind of fell by the wayside. But at that point in time, we also put in place integrity testing. And it was amazing. The losses stayed flat and actually went down some. I'm not suggesting not to use all these important tools on the left, but integrity testing makes all those things work a lot better, because we're not hiring people that are high risk for many different situations. This is a quote by Joe Paduta. He does a lot. He's a blogger. He works with large investments in the healthcare industry. And the big buzzword out there right now is behavior health. And his quote was, "There's a growing recognition that medical issues aren't hindering recovery nearly as much as psychosocial ones are." And so we're seeing that. So a lot of the issues we're having with people recovering is they are, addicted to drugs. They have other issues going on in their life. Probably put better by a president of a drywall firm that I was working with. He goes, "It seems like personnel issues become work comp problems. And bad employees sure make terrible claimants." Now, when I talk to employers and I run this quote by them, I get a lot of nodding of the head. Yes, and they will name that person. Yeah, that was that person. He was costing us money on this. He was always late for work. He leaves early. We've got all kinds of problems, and now we have a work comp claim. And the classic is, we're going to lay him off on Friday, and he had an injury on Thursday. I mean, that's just, I can't tell you how often I hear that. And then when they are, they do have a claim. These claims sometimes last for years, and you're dealing with that same problem. So those are the type of people that we're really trying to weed out of the applicant pool.
And I don't think,
Go ahead.
I don't know if I don't know if we have the examples slide in this deck, but I mean, literally a week and a half ago, we talked to a partner, and they're in this, they have a work comp product, but then they also own a Amazon DSP, like the delivery service. And, they got, 120 employees, and they're, Amazon delivery drivers. Right. And the guy's at his wit's end, right? He's like, this thing is just, it's getting out of control. He's like, I just had a young guy who worked for us for like less than a month and a half. He was unreliable. He didn't show up for work. And then he no-called, no-showed. We reach out to him. Hey, are you all right? Is everything okay? Like, what's going on, right? You kind of do what you normally would do when people no-call, no-show, right? And he finally, responds and says, "Hey, I got hurt in the bathroom." at work, right? And so these are work comp pros. Like these guys are in the work comp business. They do the work, and then they have the work comp business on the side. And he's like, so they handle it. They bring in the TPA. They've got all the things in place that you mentioned on that first slide, and he doesn't engage, right? And a few days later, of course, they get a letter from the attorney, right? I think it just highlights that quote, beautifully. These are the kinds of problems, right? And these are the things we want to prevent, right?
And it's obviously what we're trying to address. I had this slide I found really interesting. I did it was a part of a big marketing effort with one of my clients, the large $10 million guaranteed cost program, which is quite large, and they were looking at moving to a different insurance company. So we had 7 major insurance companies present. 5 of them did on-site presentations where they brought the whole team from claims to loss control and underwriting. The risk management presentations, I have to say, across the board were not the greatest. I used the term pedestrian. But the most interesting thing was 4 of the insurance companies brought up integrity testing. And it was interesting because none of them could really explain it. So part of why we're doing this webinar is we're trying to teach people in the insurance industry, really to understand how to use this tool, how to help their clients with the tool. But in this particular case, all 4 of them brought it up. The only thing they could say about it is, well, they have some special pricing on it. Well, it never went any farther. And we had given all the carriers the information on these claims. In this particular client, 70% of their claims are coming from new hires. So I was surprised at that, but I think it's important to understand if this is a phenomenal tool, but we have to have something. It takes experience. If you've never done it, it does take some practice and understanding, how best to position this with your client. There was a national RIMS presentation on integrity testing just before COVID hit, and it was well received. But the RIMS magazine, they interviewed 3 industry experts that were in the audience out there. I happen to know all 3 of them, but they all said, we love the product, but we can't get our clients to buy it. It's always HR is the problem. And it was interesting because that particular day that the magazine article came out, I had just signed a contract, a very large contract for the client down in Houston via HR. Okay, and we're going to talk a little bit about that and why HR. Because sometimes in really large companies, HR is in one area and risk management in another area, and really they need work together. But we'll show you that what HR sees in terms of lowering turnover, which is a huge issue.
And I'll just highlight. Oh, you're going to get it's the next slide, but it's not because of costs. Like this is not an expensive product.
Excellent point. I don't think cost is ever an issue in terms of buying it. This is probably has the highest return on investment of any product that I know of. And I put this slide together just because a lot of us that come out of risk management, we don't really understand employee turnover costs. And I think it's really important to understand that and be able to talk to this issue when it's brought up. So I'm using an example here. An employer has got 1,000 employees and a 50% turnover rate. So they're hiring 500 people a year. And let's just talk about restaurant workers. And so the center column down there, I'll just walk you through. And Cornell University has a study that frontline restaurant employees, the average turnover cost is $5,864. Now, the real costs and actual costs are usually even higher than that from that end of it. But using the number that Cornell provided, if you take the $5,864 times $500, you end up with total costs of $2,000,009 in turnover costs. This tool has been known to get a 30% reduction in turnover. So 30% of 2,000,009 brings you down to 879,000. The cost of integrity testing is, I put in at $50,000. Well, the actual cost of integrity testing with 1,000 employees would be $12,000. Okay, so I'm trying to be very conservative, but even at that price, we'd be looking at a 1,659% return on investment. So
think about $1,000 a month in order to reduce your turnover by 30%. What kind of impact that makes on the business?
So that's the reason I say once HR understands that, they become on board really quickly. And part of it is not just the money; they're just the headaches of trying to find people, turnover, people that only last for 6 days, all this challenges with that situation.
And I think our friends over there with the DSP, is a perfect case study. They're a week and a half in. They leverage the platform. They've gotten 120 applicants for the platform. 35% have completed the test. 21% failed. They've made 6 hires in less than 2 weeks. This tool, the whole program, and especially when you combine it with the Discovered platform or any other platform, if you use it right, can streamline and speed up your hiring process and saves the recruiters and the HR people and the hiring managers a bunch of work weeding through bad apples and bad applicants, right? So it actually makes the hiring process like exponentially faster and easier for the people involved in it, and helps ensure that the quality of the hire is way better than what they're currently experiencing. If they're experiencing those high turnover numbers, if they're experiencing those high work comp numbers. And I'm pretty hard pressed to find, there's definitely world-class organizations out there that don't have those numbers that hire frontline workers. But if you're hiring frontline workers in construction, logistics, warehousing, healthcare, hospitality, and you're a big employer, you're experiencing those types of high turnover and high work comp numbers usually, right?
That's right. So what is overt integrity testing? It's an online pre-employment assessment. It takes less than 10 minutes. I think the average is closer to 8 minutes to take. It's 54 questions, 5th grade reading level. Say bilingual, it's actually, I believe there's like 27 different languages that it's available in. The results are instant. So as soon as they take the test, whoever's administrating can look it up and find out they're either going to be qualified or unqualified. And we'll get into that as we go into this presentation. And what's unique about this, it's done upfront early in the hiring process, and you don't need to share the results with applicants. So don't proceed with further interviews and other things that take time and money in the hiring process. They simply just don't proceed in the process. ELC requires that a test must be either non-discriminatory or validated to be compliant, and this tool is both in this case, which is very important and is a question that's frequently asked.
And I think it's important to note, Gary, particularly for HR people who are concerned about these things, this is backed by 40 years history and over 1.5 million data points. And the latest study came out in 2020 that was based on 550,000 data points and is published in IO Psychology, Business and Psychology Scientific Journal. So that means that this data has been peer reviewed by the top people in the world for compliance and this validity. And not only is it valid in that sense, but it's valid in terms of that study shows these numbers, 47% reduction in claims and 20%, 19% reduction in severity, right?
Right. Excellent point. So across the board, the studies that have been done, applicants or employees who are hired who are qualified have a 48% lower frequency rate, 19% lower severity rate, and a 30% lower turnover rate. So very significant results. on it. Again, if you're in the insurance business and not focused on employee turnover, it's a huge issue for all employers. I'm sure you hear about it. A 30% reduction in your employee turnover is incredible numbers. Some studies that have been done. This is an interesting one. A client provided this to us. This is a company that does a lot of labor in the airports around the country. And before using the tool, they by the way, back up, employee retention, how they measured it is how many employees last 1 year. And prior to using the tool, 18% would make it a year. After using it, 49%, which they considered a huge success on the program. They also measured a lot.
Typical of employers who hire frontline workers. If they can get people last more than a year, that they typically consider that a huge win, right?
That's a win. And you're getting stability. You're building up a workforce of people that are going to be there. It was interesting. I'll never forget. They told the story of at one of the airports, there was a bad blizzard. Only the people that passed the test were qualified, were the only ones that showed up. The prior employees that had been hired or whatnot, but had not taken, they didn't show up. But it was just anecdotal, but it was kind of funny. They were kind of shocked. It was 100% one way or the other on that end of it. They also measured a lot of other things. They provided us this detail in terms of attendance and people returning after leave and quitting without notice and whatnot. So it was just interesting for them to provide this type of results to us. And this is my one of my favorite. I have to move something on my screen here. Favorite studies. It will probably never ever be repeated. But a large pest control company was interested in looking at integrity testing, and the head of HR decided, let's use it. We're going to use it for a year. We're going to look at the results, what happened with the qualified versus unqualified people, and then make a decision if we're going to continue using the test. Well, we didn't know they were doing that. They went ahead and did that. So they hired everybody regardless. They didn't look at the test results. Now, we wouldn't recommend you doing that because if somebody admits to theft and other things, you have knowledge and it creates a liability situation. But they did it. This was the results that they had. They provided to us. Turnover rate was 25% for qualified employees, 65% for the unqualified, the people that didn't pass the test. 98% of the qualified candidates were graded as either A or B by their managers. Terminated employees were usually discharged for the reasons why they were unqualified. 75% of at-fault accidents committed by those unqualified candidates, much more likely to quit without notice. And the only injuries that became work comp claims were turned in by people that were unqualified. So pretty dramatic results. Again, a unique study done by this large employer. Yeah. So when we talk about integrity testing, there are covert tests, personality type tests, and there's overt where you're self-admitting. This is an overt test. And kind of the difference is overt is, I steal this much money from my employer. I'm telling you, I do it. I'm admitting it. It's just right up front. Where covert might be, if I thought Fletcher was stealing or doing some behavior, would I turn him in? It's more subjective and thought process. This is an overt test. And I'll show you some of the questions that we have on the test. Excluding pills, excluding pills you got from the doctor, prescriptions, which of the following drugs do you use? And you can see the answers here, cocaine, coke, LSD, and so forth. And by the way, people do answer these questions, and people do they do admit to these behaviors. Another question is, have you ever pretended to have a work injury in order to collect workers' compensation insurance? Some people admit to it. Some will admit several times, or they'll say, only once. Another sample question is, how often have you hit somebody in anger in the past year? Again, they're admitting to this type of behavior. And then there's a faking scale built into the and into the test. It's for people that are just kind of gaming the test. And there are 14 questions that are similar to this question in terms of, there's some pretty obvious answers. So in this case, how often have you told a lie since age 16? Well, if you say you've never told a lie, you've never been angry, you've never 14 times, odds are you're lying or there's other issues going on and you're probably not a good candidate. Why would somebody answer these questions, admit to these high-risk behaviors? Well, the reason is we call cognitive dissonance. We simply rationalize these behaviors as being normal. And we say, well, I would never do that. I wouldn't rationalize. I wouldn't do that. Well, I always ask about what about speeding? Now, speeding is not on the test, but many of us, and I'll admit to it, I do speed when I'm on the highway. I know it's wrong. I know it's against the law, but I'll admit to I do it. I have rationalized that 7 miles over the speed limit when I'm doing on a 65-mile-an-hour road. I've rationalized that that's accepted. Fletcher's in Los Angeles on some of those highways. If you're doing 65 and a 55, you'll probably get run over. But we've rationalized those behaviors. Well, yeah, but we've rationalized that. And that's how these people think. People that believe they just are better when they're high on heroin and they just a better employee and they get along with people better. And they've rationalized that in their environment. Overall, the average qualification rate is 77%. Non-qualification rate, people that did not pass the test, is 23%. So if we reduce the turnover by 30% or more, we actually come out ahead on this. But a lot of times when you're hiring, a lot of these, the 23%, if you did hire them, odds are in a week or two, they wouldn't be with you anyways. You can see,
and that's the issue, right? I think for HR is like, well, I can't find anybody, one, if anybody wants to hang out with me, I can 10x your volume of candidates, almost overnight, just making a few simple changes to your hiring process. But aside from that, I mean, that's the perfect example with the DSP. Again, this kind of, week and a half old case study we've got here, right? He's had more applicants he's ever seen before, right? He's filled 6 of the 7 roles he needed to hire in less than a week and a half. We disqualified 21%, so right in line with these numbers of the applicants for these bad behaviors, right? And so, time will tell on the rest of it. But anybody who wants to try this, again, you're going to know right away that the product is working for your workforce and the type of people that you're hiring, because you're going to see numbers like this within the first week or two, right? You're going to be like, okay, over having administered this test to X number, of people, and you're going to see them fail, right? And you're going to know, oh, wow, yeah, some of those people were getting through, and in 6 months to a year, you're going to realize, well, geez, we were letting too many of those people through our hiring process. And now all of a sudden, our culture's improving, our turnover's reducing, and obviously our work comp claims and workplace safety incidents are reducing, right? So that's the side effect that you begin to see over time.
Yeah, we measure turnover and we measure work comp because it's easy and the data is provided to us when we get it. We don't measure all those other things, but we do hear those comments. It's just they're better people. We get along better and we have less headaches and issues, but these are areas that are easy to measure.
My concrete buddy I've been talking about, I won't share the whole story, but they've hired 30 people over the summer. They went from hiring 0 people in Q1 to hiring 30 people over the summer, and they're buying more trucks. And what he told me on the phone the other day was like, the quality of the people that are on our team now are substantially better than what we had before. And obviously they solved their hiring problem and they're buying more trucks, right? Like it's, how much money they made. I mean, like in that circumstance, this is probably, I don't even know what the ROI is. It's huge. I mean, when those trucks are sitting in the parking lot, unfilled, not delivering product. I mean, it's like $10,000 a day each truck, right? So millions in increased production. So that's your opportunity cost part of it, right?
Yeah, when they look at a parking lot and see how many trucks that are that expensive are sitting, it's gotta hurt. Okay, it really does. So that's a great story. This is an interesting study that was done. It's the largest one that I know that we've ever done. It involved a really large healthcare account and 5,000 claims and over $40 million in losses. And because there was a high percentage of employees getting hurt that were what we call new hires, employed less than a year, they decided to look at a pilot program for integrity testing, which we did. They did it for 12 months. It was very successful. They rolled it out to the whole company. And so you'll see down below, I have all, and then I have the pilot program or the pilot group. Well, right in the middle of this is the healthcare company. We came out with this mandate about vaccinations, and they were losing a lot of employees. They had trouble with getting applicants. A lot of things happened. People just didn't want to be vaccinated up front, a large percentage. And so they paused the integrity testing program. So if you look down below the numbers, before doing integrity testing, 33% of the dollars were going out the door from new hires. After they implemented it, again, they only had it out there for about 18 months. We already saw the dollars going down to 18.2%. And then after stopping the test, now it's gone up to 38%. And I'm finding across the board with employers, that number is increasing. The percentage it's because of the labor pool. The number of people or claims we're getting from new hires and costs are increasing rapidly. And then I also looked at the pilot group. I was curious, and they started off at 35%, dropped to 23.5%, and right now they're up to 60% of the costs are coming from new hires. So dramatic results. First time ever we've seen before, after, and then after pausing, they have signed up and are moving forward with integrity testing at this point. This is just an example of an ROI analysis that we do. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, but the point here is if you have a client or a prospect and you want to present this and you want to have what would it look like and what kind of difference would it make for them? We'll walk this through. We'll build a model for you. I've got one insurance broker, their loss control person. He comes to me before we even do the presentation. He goes, "Yeah, I'll get you the information. I want you to build the ROI analysis on it." And as you can see, I'll just go through here real quickly. In this case, number of new hires, 400. The cost per turnover, $4,250. Turnover cost, $1.7 million. Turnover savings, $510,000. Then we look at work comp. We calculated out there would be $96,000 in that particular case in work comp savings. So total savings, $606,000. The bottom line, it would come down here. It would be for every dollar invested, it'd be $29.30 return, which is a 2,930% return on investment. So we go through things like that, but we'll help you on this. We'll help you before you even bring it up to a client. If you want us to kind of look at information, build an argument on that, we'll help you in presenting to a client, and we'll build an ROI analysis for you on it. But we'll do whatever we can do to help you just have that comfort level. After people get used to doing this, whether it's loss control, we get a lot of times it's the accounting executives that are involved in the day-to-day stuff. They get very good at it and presenting it. And then many producers, they really use this as a door opener across the board. Surprisingly, we see just as many benefit producers as property and casualty producers with this tool. They really understand the turnover aspect.
And on the back end, we'll help with the studies as well, which at some point, if you're a producer or insurance company or claims person or whatever, or underwriter, you can ultimately end up doing your own studies too. But being able to come back 6 months, 12 months after down the road, and then sort of, show the impact, right, to the actual customer. But then that becomes a case study, like many of the case studies that we talked about today. And we've just got tons and tons of these case studies. So any of the industries we talked about, we have examples of those, either Gary or us. But again, as a brokers who get good at this, or, really find this as a tool, they end up with their own, and they, can do them all.
Once they do their own studies and they see it and touch it and feel it, it's amazing how well they get at helping clients with this product. I've got, this is, I mentioned earlier, my company's called The Edge. I look for money in large work comp programs, and I'm really looking for areas: management, human resources, safety, and then claims. And there's all kinds of tools here and things, but I highlight their integrity testing. If I see 15 to 20% of the claims or claims costs from called new hires, I always recommend this tool because it makes everything else I do work. And I like to have great results, but if you hire a problem employee, they either get hurt more often or claim they get hurt more often, and they are challenging on a claim, when they're a claimant and dealing with the claim, and they take forever to close. And so this is a tool that helps everything else you're doing be, to get better results. I like showing results for my clients. I've never not gotten the expected results out of integrity testing for any of the clients that I've brought it to. It's been just a great tool that I use. That's it for our formal presentation. I don't know if the lines can be open or the chat, if there are some questions that get brought up. I'd love to answer questions or any way we can help you.
Well, if anybody thinks about their questions, I'm happy to chat here. So we'll begin wrapping up. But Gary, always thank you for coming and sharing your experience with this tool and these just crazy case studies. And it's such a remarkable thing. If we can help more organizations improve their organizations through better hiring, right, and better quality of people, and that can have such a measurable impact in their businesses. It's such a rewarding thing to be able to do that for a client. Talk about making a best friend for life, right? If you can go in and do that for somebody, they're going to love you for a long time, right?
Yeah, and I have to say, this relationship with Fletcher has been so positive. Prior to about a year ago, a little over a year and a half ago, now it's getting close to. If a client said to me, we love the idea, love it, want to do it, but we just don't get enough applicants. What's been refreshing for me is, like I say, I need you to talk to Fletcher and his group, and they've got some ideas on how to improve that. The applicant pool, and that's really been positive for me, because prior to that, I was, I would kind of, they would say, we just can't get enough applicants, we can't do it, and I'd kind of say, oh, okay, I can't, where do I go from here?
Well, now, what I tell people nowadays, that is a solvable problem, and it's not as hard as you might think it is. And if you have a HR or an executive team that's open to just making some small changes in how they manage their talent acquisition process. I mean, small changes, like literally things that you can do tomorrow. And so I just go through a simple kind of, discovery process, and, I ask them a bunch of questions, and we identify, potential opportunities. And I just give them a list of, a couple of low-hanging fruit things that they can do. Like literally they can just make a few tweaks to their job ad, their description, how they market their jobs, how they respond to candidates, the tools they already have usually that they can just leverage more effectively to produce a better result, right? So again, these are all things that they can ultimately do. And then, there's slightly more effort related things that they can do too. But I mean, again, I use the word slightly, like it takes just a minimal amount of effort to implement some of these ideas. And there are virtually no ideas that we present that are difficult to implement, right?
Yeah.
So great. Well, awesome.
Okay.
There's no questions, then I will cut.
Fletcher, we have a question from
Okay.
LinkedIn. I just dropped it on the chat.
When was this research discovered, founded? Pearson. That's a great question. So it's about 1979, the first IntegrityFirst tool was released. So I don't know, what is that, 44 years ago, something like that. And it started out as a loss prevention tool in retail type of environments, but they very quickly began to see the correlation between work comp claims and then obviously turnover and things like that. So it's been through many iterations. The latest version was released in mid 2020, and it was backed by 550,000 data points. We can send you the study, but it was published in the Business and Psychology Journal. And so that's a peer-reviewed journal. The IO psychologists who help support the creation and the validation of this tool to make sure there's no adverse impact and that it does what it says it's going to do and that it does it reliably. Those are all the things you look at. It's all in that publication. But what they looked at is, obviously it's valid to do those things, but this massive amount of data across most of these industries that we talked about were part of that study. And that their findings were 48% reduction in work comp claims incidents and 19% in severity, and is just remarkable. So there is no other assessment product on the market of any kind that does anything like whether it predicts sales performance, leadership performance, doesn't matter what category, that has this much data and this much scientific research behind it than IntegrityFirst that I found. I mean, somebody please show me something. But then I go to PsyOp and I hang out with IOs. Our IO team is top in the world, who supports us. So, but it's pretty remarkable. So.
Okay. Is that it for questions?
No more
Okay.
questions now.
Okay, cool. Well, we'll sign off. Gary, I will see you next week and
Okay.
have a
That's
good
good.
rest of your week. Thanks,
All right.
Sam. All right. Bye.
Thanks all.